Welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't African, the talk show, think show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so-called African American didn't find his way to America in the trunk of a ship. I'm your host, the Indigenous One. And tonight we're going to take a different twist, a different look at what's going on here in the Americas because America is divided up into so many different ideologies. We're going to look at it from the Spanish point of view. Joining us tonight is Chief Guanibo, and he's going to give us the rundown on the caste system of the Spanish. Chief Guanibo, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, feeling blessed. Peace, everybody.
Thank you, brother. I really, really appreciate you joining us tonight because, as you know, up here in North America, we're having some problems with the people in Los Angeles and just basically all over. The so-called African Americans are not understanding that the people in the South Caribbean and South America, some of those people probably are directly related to them. But since we fall under the ideology of these different religions and different languages and different ways of living, we're pitted against each other. And I guess that's what the powers that be want. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you see things going down where you are and down there in the Spanish language speaking places?
Well, you know, me, like many other natives from America, from the islands, had to do a lot of years of studying and looking into myself to find out who we truly are as a people, knowing that I am different. I know that we are not the same as everybody. So I know there was something different about us, and it was our indigenous roots. You know what I mean? And as I see what you just was mentioning, about how it's different and how the man wants it. It starts with the education system because in the education system, you know how they taught us. Certain movies and books that they had us reading ever since we're little, you know what I'm saying? And make everybody just grow up believing that if you're black, you came on a slave ship. And people, I just really believe that there were no dark skinned people on this, continent, until slavery. So even the Mexicans, a lot of Mexicans are prejudiced themselves and don't realize that the original Mexicans were very dark skinned people. Um, and we living in the islands, people think that we're different, and a lot of people don't know is that some people from here, from the American mainlands, were actually sent to the islands as slaves, and and like you said, we're probably more related than the people understand. um, but the way that they've divided us, um, through the education system, more than anything, because nothing programs you more than the education system for 12 whole years from your youth to your grown, and then in college it continues if you keep following the system.
Yeah, well, what I'm seeing, and I know the plan. You have a continent as big as the America, which stretches from Alaska through Canada, through Mexico, through Central America, North America, the Caribbean, and South America. You have to divide those people up. And I realize that you have Spanish, you have Dutch, you have French, you have English, you have Irish, and blah, blah, blah. And all those different groups moved in. If you look at Europe as a continent, those people moving over here to conquer this land, you have to break up the people and the way they think and the way they do things. So,
Of course.
what are you live in the Caribbean or?
I no, I live in Rhode Island, and like you said, what happens when you got like Dominicans and Puerto Ricans, which all originate had Tainos living on the lands. Now, after colonization, now you have the Puerto Ricans as a separate people and Dominicans as a separate people, and a lot of us look at each other like we're not the same people or don't originate from the same people. So the division is heavy. And then you got the Mexicans, and although we're all natives from the mainlands, we're all looking at each other as if we were different and we don't have a common ground to stand together on.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the caste system. I know You just tell us about it from, I guess you can, it's all the same. The caste system is the same everywhere, but I know the Spanish might have a different take on it. So can you give us a quick review of the caste system down in Dominican?
Well, I mean, it's Dominican is like is more of a social thing where, if you're black, they treat you a certain way, and then you got the white Dominicans, and a lot of outsiders don't know this, or they think that racism is only in America or whatever, and they don't realize that it's always a white and black thing. And in Dominican Republic, there are white Dominicans, like there are black Dominicans or the Indian Dominicans. Like there are different shades of Dominicans, and they're racist. The white Dominicans are racist. See, the outsiders, y'all see us all as one, but even inside that circle that y'all looking at as one, we're divided by that. Because of that, inferiority thing that they try to put on the colored man by making them slaves and making them feel like they were lesser. And years after years after years, of people looking at you as lesser, and also the white Jesus that everybody prays to and has been praying to for hundreds of years, that also did a lot of damage to our people who look at white people as closer to God than the darker brothers from the island.
So that's one of the ideologies that's used in the caste system there to divide is the religion. No.
Yes, definitely. Um, how is crazy because even some of them, you try to tell them what the truth is, you use facts, but it has been implanted in their minds for so long, for so many years, generation after generation, that they find it almost impossible to believe in a different ideology. My own mother told me, her and her sister, which is my aunt, my godmother, both told me that we're too old. We've been living this way and believing this thing for so long. We can't change now.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people say. That's what my mother says the same thing too. So the people that on Dominica, they're called Tainos.
Well, the ones who recognize themselves as Taíno, you know, even though we're not, that wasn't exactly our name, but Taino means good people. So when we met, encountered other people, we would say that we are Taino, we are good people, and they took it as that was our name. So then they started to refer to us as Tainos. Um, but a lot of the land, people from Dominican Republic, they do not know their history. Like if you look at a mulatto person, when you see a person that's straight, let's say black and white mixed, like you got David Griffin, what's that kid's name, the basketball player from LA Clippers. Um, I
But
forget his name, Griffin, but he's like mulatto. But our people don't look like that. So you see that there's another mix, that there's
right.
something else that makes us different than the average mulatto, you know? And that's our indigenous roots right there. You can see it, it's plain to see. But most of our people don't believe in that history. They'll say, oh, my great grandmother supposedly she was Taino, she was an Indian. So, they don't even make sense because they're saying that their great grandmother was, but still exclude themselves from what the tree that they come from is a real hard situation that we have been put in these past 100 years, a couple 100 years. You know what I'm saying? Of believing this certain way.
Now, one of the things that I find interesting about Dominican Republic is that it shares the island with Haiti, and
Right.
I hear that's a big mess because a lot of Haitians try to come over to the Dominican side to sell their wares, and they're forbidden to do that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, again, as you know, a lot of Haitians are real dark, and some of them came from Africa in slave ships. You know, that's all documented. But then just that hate of they're blacker than us. You know what I mean? They don't accept them as they accept the other Dominicans. You know, and that's just a hate that's been brewing for many years. You know, one of the dictators that ran the country back in, you know, a long time ago, probably almost 100 years ago, Trujillo, he would be murdering like hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of the Haitians that were trying to come into the Dominican Republic, or just trying to live free, because basically they're just trying to live free, you know. But you got Haiti was run by the French, while Dominican Republic side was run by the Spaniards. So even as they gained their independence, each gained their independence at separate times, um, they were still divided. So when DR gained their independence, they didn't care about what was happening with the Haitians. You know, you had a dictator that hated black. He spoke against them. He murdered them. You know, and he tried to show the people love his people to get the supporters and win them over, while he's actually committing genocide against other people who are their counterparts. You know, um, so I think that division ever since then has has continued, because the racism has not stopped. The white Dominicans in power, and Jews. There's many Jews in the Dominican Republic. A lot of people don't know nothing about that, but they you know, the Jews are always involved in causing division. You know, um, obviously, you know, they run the entertainment, they run the news, the newspapers, so many of them. So they spread the same information at the same time to people who think that it's coming from a reliable source or a trusted source, and they following what they believe is true, even if it goes against their own people.
The Tainos. If you go to African Americans Ain't Africans on the Facebook page, you can pull up some pictures or some images of some Tainos, their old pictures and newer pictures too. Tell us a little bit about the Tainos and how they lived and what they did and what they do and how they continue to carry on their heritage.
Well, the original Taino was a very peaceful person, and is, you know, documented by Columbus himself, that said that these people were very humble, very good people, very peaceful. We never possessed anything. We shared everything. The land was everybody's. There was no bickering amongst us. We just got along freely. Like I said, when nobody possessing anything, there was no jealousy. You know, everybody ate, you know, the same. Everybody got their fill. Everybody did what they had to do on the land, you know, and they enjoyed themselves. They had their good times. Um, until, you know, obviously when Columbus came and destroyed what we had going on. Now there are still Tainos representing their original culture in Puerto Rico, and more than in Dominican Republic. But the funny thing is that I noticed that most of the Puerto Rican so-called Tainos are very white and light skinned, and hardly represent what we believe to know as the original Tainos were dark skin, not white, not light. So you have a lot of the Tainos that represent the Taino culture and roots in Puerto Rico are very light, where the ones in Dominican Republic, you hardly see white people claiming to be Taino. The white Dominicans, you hardly ever see one of them claim their Taino roots, but you see more of the darker people of the island agreeing to their roots being Taino. Whereas in Puerto Rico, you see more of the light skin. And you know, I ain't mad at them, because a lot of them have tried to preserve the culture as much as possible. And you know, but I think that you know, the white man still took over the Taino in Puerto Rico more than in Dominican Republic.
Mr. Davis, could I pop in just to ask the chief one question? it was brought up in a topic of discussion I was having with Tomahawk last week, Chief. It was the system of blancamiento. Turegua had told me about it. I did some research on it. It was basically like I know it was definitely in Mexico. I'm wondering how much it impacted DR, where like you would have like a mestizo, a coyote, a negro, an indio, just like 12, 13, 15 different sort of classifications based upon if your nose was too wide, if your skin was lighter or darker. Did that impact the Dominican Republic and the populations there?
Not the same as Puerto Rico, because you got to remember that this caste system was kind of brought around, the time where the U.S. was meddling a lot with Puerto Rico, and since they're kind of a U.S. territory, the way that they were doing things in the Puerto Rico was a lot different than in Dominican Republic, where they were kind of independent for a while, running things their way. But of course, there was a caste system, but I think it was not like the Puerto Rican caste system, where they would really try to divide the people like that, by paper, like the paper genocide that we always talk about. I think it was more happening more in Puerto Rico than in the Dominican Republic. And I think in the Dominican Republic, a lot of the history of the Taino kind of got just not talked about, uh, or like, it just became like non-existent.
Mm,
You know, if you were like Indian in the past 100 years or 200 years, like in the beginning, they did cast us like that, mestizo, and if you were half Spanish, Spaniard, and half Indian, if you were Indian and black, or if you were Indian, African, and European, and all that stuff. So yeah, there was a caste system, but I don't think it was like 11, 10 different types like in Puerto Rico,
mm,
because that's actually documented in Puerto Rico, where
mm.
I've never seen any of that type of documentation for the Dominicans.
Yeah. Thank you, Chief.
I think that separation, what you just said about the what goes down in Dominican Republic, you got 15 different ideologies down here. The same thing goes on up here. We got people who think they're Hebrews, Moors, uh,
Right,
all kind of things, and it keeps everybody messed up and divided. And one of the things I've learned about education here is that it it renders people unable to think. So, like here, you ask people simply, "Well, who's your mother?" Well, why? Well, what's it? Why is it important that I know who my mother is? Because mothers are the ones who have the babies. I mean, this is basic, simple stuff that a rat knows,
right.
and we don't seem to get it. So, what I've learned about the education, because most of us up here in North America get our education directly from the church first.
Right, right.
Then,
That's
then
a
we go.
fact. That's a
Yes,
fact. Because they
yes,
baptize you when you're just not even able to talk or walk or anything. They already got you in the church
right.
early.
And it's like you said about your mom and aunt. We'll go our whole lives. I mean, imagine that. We'll go our whole lives not even questioning one thing. And that's
Right,
what you're seeing a lot with the African Americans here now. I mean, we got people 50 and 60 years old. I mean, you have brothers teaching that men can breastfeed. That seriously, that's how bad it is here. You have men telling people that the men carries the seed, but the women care. You fertilize the seed from the woman. The woman carries. I mean, is that bad?
I
Is
think
it?
the people are afraid of revolution, um,
Yeah,
because a lot of people forgot that the revolution was never came to be. What Malcolm died for, what Martin Luther King, what every indigenous leader from back in the days that got shot, killed, framed, jailed, or whatever. The revolution never reached. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people are just afraid to face that. And we just going deeper into that, self-hate and that hopelessness, that we forget that the revolution never happened. and that we still are not free, and that we still have not got the rights that are owed to us, that are our God-given rights. And the people, if you don't see that, if you don't believe that, then how are you going to stand up for your rights? How are you going to say, yes, I need to change, or I need to do this, and I need to speak up, or I need to take action, if you don't believe that you are a slave? Like, they don't believe that they are being enslaved. They don't realize that they cannot drive without a license. They don't realize that they can't leave the country without a passport and every other thing that they use to control you, where you can't be free to just be yourself and do you freely. They still think that they're free. And as long as they believe that they're free, and that's the difference between a slave today and the slave that was held actually captive, is that they knew they were slaves. And today's people do not know that they're slaves. So why would they fight a war, or a fight that they don't believe even exists?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I find that's real bad in the Caribbean. That whole passport thing. You know, how are you going to tell somebody you can't?
I mean, if they wouldn't be here themselves if somebody told them they couldn't.
Right,
You know, it's like you're taking, like, in the only 400 or 500 years ago, after from thousands and thousands and thousands of years of our existence, we traveled the whole world, the whole earth freely. Every man that wanted to get on a vessel and get in that water and go wherever the hell he wanted to go could do that.
right,
You know,
right,
we can't
right,
even fish.
right.
We can't even fish approval. We can go get a free fish that's out there reproducing itself every day, ready to feed the people, and we still need a fishing license, or you're gonna get in trouble or fined or jailed. So,
Wow.
it's so many different things, so many little things that people just look at this little thing and don't think that that little thing, when you take that little thing and add all the other little things, like I mentioned, the passports, the license, and every other regulation that is out there, you add all that up, and you see how, because each thing is like a wall. You know what I'm saying? Where in the end, when you look at all these different things that they got against us, we're trapped. I can't even travel myself to Canada over a crime that I committed 20 years ago. They held me at the border for 8 hours and wouldn't let me go, and, and just asking me stupid questions about something that I did 20 years ago.
Yeah,
You know,
man. Yeah. It's I- it's something you said earlier, and I just look at it like this: these people aren't going to give us anything,
nothing.
and
Not giving it to us.
no, they're not giving us
No,
anything.
is we have to wake up, but it has to be a collective thing, that we all act at the same time. You know,
Yes.
that's why these
So
platforms are very important to our people to get motivated. Some people might be sitting back and never made one move or one action, and maybe this conversation that they're hearing might lead them to say, you know what, I got to do things differently. So we just got to keep doing what we're responsible to do, and that's teach the truth that we know is the truth.
yes. What about uh, the the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico? Um, is there any continuity with those two islands right there? Because they're both Spanish speaking, entities.
We get along, but the majority always have something to say. It's always shots being thrown, even if it's just as jokes, you know. But the Puerto Ricans and Dominicans do not count themselves the same. The Dominicans actually think they're better than the Puerto Ricans in a sense, because I guess the nationality, they're owned by the U.S. We're our own country. You know what I'm saying? These guys, they're drug users and this and that. Because I'm gonna tell the truth. A lot of Puerto Ricans are lost to the American way, and that's because of the welfare system. You know what I'm saying? When you got the welfare system telling people that they don't need to work, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It ends up causing them to start creating generations of people who are not workers, who don't look up to somebody who works hard. Whereas the Dominican, we're not giving handouts in the Dominican Republic. We work hard for everything. So when we come to the US and can get money and working a lot less than what we worked back in the country, we taking advantage of that. And it doesn't bother us to do all that work. But if you stuck in a system where there's welfare and they taking care of you, you poor and you don't got nothing, okay, here's some money. You don't have to work, go ahead. Just stay your lazy butt home. And now you got these kind of Puerto Ricans coming to the Americas. They're coming over here just because they're gonna get welfare over here too. So you got a lot of Puerto Ricans that come here and then you're not getting the best class of Puerto Ricans all the time, you know what I'm saying? Because they're coming from the projects and they're coming heavy, you know what I'm saying? Whereas a lot of the good Puerto Ricans, when I go to Puerto Rico myself, I see a lot of the Puerto Ricans on the island are more like the Dominicans. Them are the ones who stay on the island, who love their land, who are not trying to leave their land, who live the real indigenous way, and not an Americanized slave way of being on welfare and using drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, and everything else that they use to keep them down. So we kind of have that issue where is kind of like you kind of have a reason to be against some of them, but you have to understand what got them to that point. And we have to understand that if our brothers and sisters were brainwashed, were led to believe certain things for hundreds of years, we cannot completely blame them for the position they were put in. You know what I mean? And we have to have more understanding with each other so that we can build ourselves out of this. Because the Puerto Rican and the Dominican are too many to not be united. We're millions and millions of Tainos running around not knowing that we are Tainos. And that does us no good.
Um, Dominican Republican and Puerto Rico are like right next to each other. What's that, about 300 miles away from each other?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much a canoe ride away.
Yeah.
Cause that's what we were doing. We were bouncing from island to island. The Taino or Arawak and the Caribs were all over the islands, hopping around, mixing with each other, and having peace mostly. You know, um,
So
and if you don't know that,
go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
no, I'm saying that if you don't know that past that we shared, that we all got along, that we were really connected, you know, and that it was spiritual and not just social or economical. If we don't, recognize that, then we won't give importance to what we need to do um, as a unit, you know, and that's what's been holding us back more than anything. That division, that hate. You hate yourself, you're gonna hate the next man too.
Yes. I think that's the main problem right there. It's not so much of you hating of the next man, it's hate of self. Let me ask you this. Ever since Houston, I mean, not Houston, ever since Cuba came back online, how has that opened it up down there for Dominican and Puerto Rico?
Let me, the funny thing is that I've never heard a mention from any leaders or influential people of Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic talking about any relations with Cuba after that.
Are
I
you
haven't heard nothing,
serious?
so I can't even give an input on it because it seemed like it only mattered to America, to the U.S.
So was there any trading or was there any relationships going on with the countries?
I'm not sure, to tell you the truth, because you know how Cuba was doing their own thing so long, and our people kind of excommunicated them pretty much. Where we know Cubans, we don't have a lot of Cubans in the north, like down south. So we really don't be knowing what's going on with Cuba, And me personally, I haven't like been able to do any research myself because there's no it's like there's no bridge, you
Right.
know. Um, and I think now is the time for us to make that bridge. And, ever since they did open up, me and some of the chiefs, we have talked about traveling to Cuba because this is our chance to unite ourselves again with our original people because the Tainos are all over Cuba. And there are many Cubans that recognize that their Taino roots.
Yes, yes, yes. Um, oh man,
I find it crazy how there's Puerto Ricans that recognize their roots, there's Cubans that recognize their roots, there's Dominicans that recognize the group, but as a collective, they're all acting like that's not our roots.
what do you mean?
Like the majority of the collective do not believe in their Taino roots. They do not live like that's who they are. No,
C- c-
even though
c-
we have so many people that continue to represent the culture.
Chief, if I'm not mistaken, a few years ago, I believe they did some, I don't know, some genetic study or something on Puerto Rico and found like 60% of the people there had Taino blood in them or something like that. Did you recall that study?
Yes, I do, and there has been more studies when it comes to DNA testing and stuff like that, where it's really impossible to get a definite about somebody's history through DNA testing. You know, so I mean, I believe that there's plenty of them and there's many of them. I don't know if it's everybody got 60%, but it, as far as the other tests that I've seen that say these are tests that go back to the 80s that are just still unearthing themselves, that they talk about how the DNA testings are not accurate enough and you cannot go by a DNA test and all this ancestry.com and everything like that to really know the truth. You know, my brother took a test recently where he came out 50% or 40% are European, 10% Native American from the islands, and then had like a 15, 20% African, and then a whole bunch of different percentages of a whole bunch of different other stuff. Um,
that goes to the education that I was talking about. So here's a perfect example. So let's say you have some children. Your children should be able to go to your mother, and your mother should be able to remember the stories that her grandmother told her to
yep.
pass down to the children. For some reason, we don't do that. We take these DNA tests, and you have to be a damn fool to get that and let a stranger send your DNA to a stranger, somebody
Right.
you have never met,
Right.
somebody you've never met. The African Americans, they do it like they going to get a pair of new shoes. They think that is God's word. So
Yeah.
that's why it's kind of screwed up here in America, man. It's embarrassing what we do. We won't even we will turn our backs on our grandmothers. We will turn our backs on our great grandmothers and listen to something that somebody we don't even know and listen to
Right.
what they say and believe it.
Right.
Hey, Buck, yo, can
Everybody
I jump?
that asks, what? Hello.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Tomahawk.
yeah, it's
I'm
Tom Hawk.
sorry that
Yo, how
every
you doing?
time I ask somebody tells me, "Oh, how do I find out what my roots are and if I'm native?" I said, "Well, go talk to your grandmother.
Right.
Go find out what she has to say. Get as much knowledge from her. Whatever she knows is what you're gonna base your knowledge off, not off going to take a DNA test. You know." And a lot of people think that that's the answer. Once they take that DNA test, they make their speculation off that.
So let me ask you a question. I'm sorry, Tomahawk. You had something to say, Tomahawk?
Yeah. Yeah, so I was just talking to one of our members like yesterday, right? So he's learned genealogy through Jasiri and all of that. So he's been like heavy into it, right? Anyway, he just told me that one of his older peoples, if you will, they saved up $300 to take the DNA test, right? And he told me a whole bunch of nonsense, right? And basically the younger dude informed his people, told them all the records, and basically like the older dude felt embarrassed about the situation. You know what I'm saying? Because the DNA, it's not a real record. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? And they got the legal information and all kinds of disclaimers saying that this is not real information basically, and they charging people over $300 for misinformation. It's crazy. I just wanted to comment real quick on that.
Yes, and that's what it is.
Your money. Do your research. Save your money.
Right. Real
I,
research.
I mean, it's simple. You got uncles and aunts. You know, you got your mother. Ask your mother who her grandmother was. Ask your father who his grandmother was. These are simple things that you can do yourself. Everybody passes down the information. Family normally passes down information to the children. We act like we don't know. I don't know nobody. I ain't never seen no. Ask somebody. You got an uncle or aunt or something. I mean, you wouldn't believe how many people that say they're adopted. You can't find your family nowhere. And I realize that the African American has just been trained to turn away from himself.
Right.
We we
And
we we totally disrespect the female principle. And when you don't claim, you don't know what your grandmother, those women back there weren't like the females today. The
well, you know
men the
what?
men wasn't like the men are today. They were on some high level stuff. It would be very wise for you to check out who your people were. Find out who. It's not that hard.
Well, you know that some of the grandparents and aunts and uncles that you're talking about, even some of them feel kind of like embarrassed, kind of to talk about their real past, their real truth. It's kind of like they rather not talk about it. It's like you got to really ask them and bring it out of them. Like I'm learned things just from asking my mother questions that she should have already been told us. You dig what I'm saying? We shouldn't have
Yeah.
had to ask, but they want to try to move into the future as things are going to get better for us in this new world, and forget about our old ways. You know, and I think a lot of them feel a certain way about talking about that history, like because they have shamed that, from calling us savages or whatever, or that we didn't know how to live. And, a lot of people think that the white man came and showed us how to be civilized. So they kind of be embarrassed, kind of in a way to say that they were part of that uncivilized groups, you
You
know,
call you call this civilized?
what they call civilized.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just paying attention to uh, this Trump cat today, and I'm like, this cannot be real. We cannot be. Our lives are being ran by a dude who looked like one of the Oompa Loompas from Wizard of Oz, a orange person,
I
and
mean, come on, anybody
we
with
take
logic,
we take everything from these people.
anybody with logic would never had expected that he would be the president. You know, like that. The fact that he's there shows what this country really is, and we know who. As long as the powers that be that run the country keep us confused, keep the misinformation happening. The same powerful people are the ones feeding us the messages that we keep feeding off the TV and the radio that continues to poison and distract us. It's really hard if our people do not let go of the TV and the radio. It's almost impossible that we're going to get them to recognize their roots and how important it is for them to live like their true selves. Um, and that's really a strong drug that's holding us back every day, distracting us and holding us back. We put in right now. There was a study I seen that most people are spending about 80 hours a month on social media. You dig what I'm saying? That's like
Yes,
2 whole work weeks, 2 whole work weeks on top of your work weeks.
right.
Then you're gonna eat and relax. And when are you doing anything productive for yourself, for your tribe, for the future of your family? If you're putting this much time, what I'm saying, into watching TV, football games every Sunday, you completely give your Sunday to watching football and eating garbage food. You know, that could be time that you could have been, you know, studying on your roots and getting together with some of your brothers and building and helping move along in a more productive way. Instead, we're wasting ourselves away. We're wasting our money buying crappy foods that we eat while we watch these games, and we're not focusing on ourselves. Everything is external. We're focused on everything external and nothing internal. Everything is material,
Everything.
nothing is spiritual. You know, and and that's our biggest fight. I mean, that's our real biggest challenge is how do we get their attention when they're this distracted and the powers that be have way more power than us. You know, we cannot distract them the same way as they can distract our people.
Well, you see up in here now, we've just straight turned. The foreigners are coming over, and when I talk about foreigners, the world is divided into two halves. You have the eastern side, which makes up Asia, Africa, and Europe, and you have the Americas that make up this side, and Australia too. I'll bring Australia to this side, and the islands in between. Uh, we have lost it. I'm watching what the people do here to each other. I'm watching these sisters going into these beauty shops. I'm watching these brothers rob people. I mean, just we're just turning in on ourselves, and I think that's how the powers that be wants it. So when they go ahead, and if you listen to Frances Cress Welsing, she brings this up.
Right.
And she brings it up. She said, all they're going to do is make you turn on each other and let the world see how animalistic you are. And when they're ready to drop the hammer, nobody's going to say anything.
They're not gonna care. They're
They're
gonna
not going
say
to care.
deserve it.
You're absolutely right. So what is some of the things that you think that we can implement to stave off this genocide coming? Because in reality, if you look at what's going on in Chicago, and I think Chicago is just the cover, I think it's happening everywhere. What are some of the things that you see, or one of the things that you think we can implement to stave off this genocide?
It starts at home first of all. You know, it starts at home teaching the kids from when they're the smallest to know who they are, to know what their roots are, what their history is, and possibly homeschooling. We need to start schooling our own people. We need to take them out of the public education system. That's the first step. If we can take them out of the public education system, then we already, I think, are halfway there.
Oh yeah,
Because because
yeah.
the public system is not only the lectures, is not only what's taught, the curriculum, but it's also the culture, you know, the way that students treat each other, and everything like that. The jealousy that they have of each other, showing off who got better sneakers and all this other stuff. You eliminate this material competition that happens in public schools. When you're homeschooled, you don't got to worry about impressing anybody. You're just learning what you need to learn to survive, and you're respecting family. You're with your family more. You're around your parents more, which means that you're learning to be more like them instead of being more like a society that's being created by the American way or the U.S. way. You know, so I think that more important than anything is to escape that public school system. That's the number one programmer of our people, and
You know,
obviously the religion.
you know what I don't get about the public school system. I mean, it was a joke when I went to school, and talking to the youth today. I mean, what are they giving these kids in the school? And these kids, I mean, it's like they tell you oxygen is water, water is oxygen, and we'll go on that.
Right.
It's like we don't even go out and touch anything anymore. We
Right.
just, like you said, we just believe all the artificial music coming on, all the artificial pictures that's coming across the screen. That's all we know.
And again, The public school system is giving computers to these kids. These kids are growing up in a computerized world. From the minute they start first grade, kindergarten, they're already on computers. So they're pretty much still getting programmed to just be a Autobot, you know, just keep following, just keep stay with the program, keep your eye on the screen, you know. If we cannot break ourselves from that, then we lose ourselves. I was telling some brothers earlier that you know how there's the CDs and people that only want to be online listening to free music or listening to streams or whatever. And I said the CDs is all that the underground has left. You know what I'm saying? If we don't have CDs, then there is no underground, and we're leaving the streets to the internet. So the internet is gonna give us all our information and all our culture. So, you know, they control everything. All the algorithms, when you're searching something and something pops up, and people believe that everybody's searching that because that was the first thing to pop up. But everybody's not searching that. That's them making you think everybody's searching that, you know. And that's how we're being programmed every day. The program is getting tougher than ever right now.
Yeah,
You
man,
know,
I'm noticing that some of these cats can't even tell the difference between a man and a woman.
I can't tell between a man and a woman these days. I'll be walking down the street and I'm like, what is that? Is it a
Right,
boy or a girl? Damn, what the hell? I
right,
can't
right.
believe it. And then you know what I think of all the time when I see this stuff? I go back to an 80s song that used to say, dude looks like a lady.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Dude looks like a lady. That old rock song, you know. And that's what I'm seeing out here is like you don't know who's who and what's what, and they're just breaking down the gender and making men believe that they can look like, act like women if they want to be, you know, like we know that there's two spirits. We know that there's people that's born that way, but it's such a rare occasion. It's such a small percentage, and for them to make us believe that it can be anybody and
yeah.
having children growing up in a society that believes that you too can be that too is your choice, you know. The next step after accepting homosexuality is accepting pedophilia because most homosexuals have been victims of pedophilia, and that's what led to their homosexuality in most cases. And
You know,
and so
you
now
know,
if you accept homosexuality so much, then next thing is to accept pedophilia, and that's all happening.
yeah. The pedophilia thing is a major now. I mean, I know you just heard about was about 300 priests up in the D.C. area a couple of weeks
In
ago.
Pennsylvania,
Yeah, okay.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pennsylvania. Yes, you're right. Uh, this is major. Can you imagine how much damage they've done in Pennsylvania?
Just that's just the cases that were brought up.
Right, right.
That's not even every incident. There's some kids that went to that are going to the grave with that situation. You know what I mean? Um,
So
and the thing is,
so when we bring up the pedophile with the pedophile priests and stuff, uh, and we know we have that Spanish is big Catholicism. How big is that industry down there? How big is the child trafficking down in that way?
I've never heard of nothing like that. Honestly, I've never heard of any cases of that. Like we're really big on hurting children, and sometimes you know things like that happen out there. People take it into their own hands. You know, if somebody's found to be doing something like that, they'll go and get a machete and chop the guy up, and you'll
Right,
go to jail for like 3 years or 2 years. You know what I
right.
mean? So you know, out there is not the same as America. You know, America, you could get away with every crime, and nobody's
Right.
gonna do anything to you.
Yes.
You know, even snitches don't get stitches no more.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Like,
sir.
but when you're in a country that's a third world country and it's more where the people will take actions into their own hand, they're not gonna go for that. You know, if they hear that some priest did, they're not even gonna wait for the church to save them and transport them somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
they're gonna go grab his ass right away. You know what I'm saying? Um, so you
Well,
know it's not the same as America. America protects its criminals, especially
yes.
the worst kind. They don't protect drug dealers or murderers. They protect pedophiles and people who do the foulest things. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The
Well,
rapists.
I'm. It's my job, man. It's because there's nothing else to do. We have to make people aware. You know, many of us we don't want to know nothing. We just want to know clown shit. But we got to make people aware. And I think once the people become aware, they'll these fake notions will fall from their eyes.
Right. I think we have to bang harder.
Bang harder.
I think that's our only solution is bang harder. You know, if they didn't hear it the first time, we got to be a little louder the second time. You know, I've been even myself pondering just standing on the street corner with a bullhorn and starting to just attract the people and start spitting the knowledge and attracting them to me just because I'm louder being that way in the middle of the street where all the cars are crossing and they say, wait a minute, that's Crook. Well, that's, the chief. What's he talking about now? Like, he's out here like that, I'm just thinking that we have to create bigger platforms for ourselves to be recognized more. Um,
Yeah, we definitely have to lead a world a better place than when we found it. And that's just not you. That's just not me. That's just not Two Hogs. That's just not Tomahawk Tony and some other people out there. It's like you said earlier. We all gonna have to step at the same time.
right?
And I don't see why we don't see that's the simplest way to do it.
It's not easy, brother, because some people even hear what you got to say. They'll agree with you and they'll walk away and continue to live exactly the same.
Yes.
This is what gets to me the most. You know, you're sitting there listening, agreeing that what I'm saying is true, and yet still keep moving the same.
Yeah.
Program is heavy. And like I said, it starts at home, and and me, I'm more focused on teaching fathers how to be fathers, because we cannot teach the youth. We don't have a direct connection to the youth the way our leaders back in the days had connections to the youth. Now the youth and the OGs be divided. So I try to focus more on teaching other brothers how to be better fathers so they can teach. I could teach them and then they could teach their youth, but I cannot go directly to their youth, when their number one teacher is their own father.
Well, cool. Well, brother, why don't you share your information with the listening audience if they want to get with you and learn some of the things you have to offer and learn some more about the Tainos? You pass out that information, email address, or whatever you want to give.
Yes, my email is chiefguanibo@gmail, is spelled the way it sounds, Guanibo, chiefguanibo@gmail.com. Anybody can hit me up and ask me any question, and I'll be glad to respond and give them as much information and point them in the right direction. And mainly, everybody needs to start doing their own research. And you can ask some questions, but you need to go find the information for yourself so that you can know what you're learning is true and not just hearing it from somebody else, because that's how we got in the position that we're in, by listening to other people telling us what the truth was. So everybody has to be responsible for learning the truth for themselves, for going out there, hitting that road, and traveling and getting the experience on their own is the number one thing, you know. But they can also follow me at Instagram, Chief Guanibo on Instagram as well, and reach out. And we're here. We're here for the purpose of enlightening the people and giving them motivation and confidence. Motivation and confidence. You are an indigenous person, original controllers of the land, the one who made everything that's on this land possible. because they wouldn't even know how to eat on this land, survive off this land. Most of the farmers from this land are not of this land, but they learned what we taught them, you know, and um, and we need to be proud of who we are and be confident in who we are, and that's what is the main thing, to spread that confidence. Be confident in who you are. Don't feel less because you are who you are. You know, we don't want to be white. We want to be exactly what we are at
That's
all
right,
times.
brother. You're
Right.
absolutely right. Well, brother, I want to thank you for joining us tonight and sharing with us tonight because that's one of the connections that I think we have to make tighter. That South America, that Caribbean, that North America, that Canadian connection because, one land, one people.
Is that we're all Americans, but people are getting caught up with U.S. calling the U.S. America.
Right,
You had that big ass song that just came out. This is America. They're talking about the U.S. He's talking about
right,
the U.S.
right,
He's not talking about all of America.
right.
He's talking about the U.S., but they keep feeding that the U.S. is America, and it confuses us. You know what I'm saying? Because we're all Americans, and whether you're from the islands or you're Mexican or Central South American, Canada, like you said, and all the original inhabitants, we are Americans. We are the Americans. The U.S. is not America, and what the U.S. does is not a representation of all of us.
That's right. So, brother, listen, man, I really, really appreciate you joining us tonight, man, because you
Appreciate you
definitely,
having me.
you definitely shook them. I appreciate you sharing with us, brother.
I appreciate you having me
All
and having
right,
the platform. And
two
we'll be in
hearts.
touch. We'll
Yes,
keep
we'll be
building.
in touch, and please, man, please come back if you have anything you need to share with us because what's not really known is a lot of us have roots down in the Caribbean and South America, and we
That's
just
right.
don't know about it. Like you say, we just get caught up in what's going on up here.
That's right. Because they don't tell that story in the history books that
Right,
slaves were brought from this mainland down to the islands. And the people in the islands thinking they're coming from Africa. But it was really the indigenous so-called blacks that were Native Americans of the mainland. You
right,
know, they don't that was never taught, and that's why it's important to get out of the public school system, because how many of us are in this school system for 12 years? They know that we come from a different place, they know what our history is, but they don't teach us our history. They only teach us this government's history. We're not learning the country's history, we only learn this government's history all
that's it.
throughout our schools here.
That's it. That's it. So, brother, please come back and visit us anytime.
For sure.
I just want to let the audience know we really appreciate you tuning in with us tonight and listening to what the brother had to offer us tonight. And he dropped some gems on us. And we have to notice those people down in the Caribbean. Those are your people.
That's right.
Those are your people. You used to go down there. You used to go down the Gulf of Mexico. Like you say, get on a canoe and go down there and man, be on and popping.
Hey
These are your
man, that's right. If you see the islands, if you look at the islands from South America all the way to Florida, where the Miami is, aka Bimini, that's what the Taino call Miami. These islands, we hopped from the mainland, which where we originally came from, South America, and we hopped on all these islands. Each island is only so many miles apart from each other, you know,
yeah.
and
So
we
but
were
it's
living free.
and so that's what I mean. You have all these Moors, Israelites. They come over to confuse. If you ask them, was your mother a Moor? Huh? What you
Yeah,
mean? And,
I,
and, and,
I
and
got I get blocked by them sometimes when I start asking them questions.
yeah, they,
You
they,
know,
they
because they try to put us into the Moorish equation as well. They try to put the Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and
right.
so do the so-called Israelites. They are putting the Dominicans and Puerto Ricans in the same equation as well. You
Yes.
know,
And so their job is to me is to just bring confusion. And it's kind of like you were saying. You bought your You're broken up into 15, 16 different ideologies down there. That's what those groups do. Just bring utter confusion.
Yep.
So, but like I say, brother, I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Appreciate your share tonight, and we're gonna have you back soon.
My pleasure. I'm always available for you, brother. Anything that has to do with spreading this knowledge and bringing motivation to our people, then I'm with it. I'm available. You just hit me.
I will definitely do that. And I want to thank the audience for joining us tonight. Listen, y'all, search your families, go through the mothers. I realize that this rap music have got women thinking they not nothing. No man feet touches the ground unless he comes through a woman.
Well, that's
That's
right.
as simple as I can make it.
That's right.
Women have the babies.
Even
Every
and that goes for all homosexuals as well.
yes,
You could
men,
not be here today
men
if it was not because of the union of a man and a woman. So
yes,
you're contradicting your own existence when you live that lifestyle.
contradicting your own existence. Truer words can were not ever spoken. So if you have any questions for me, check me out at African Americans Ain't Africans on Facebook. I'll answer any questions. Life is simple, y'all. Life is simpler than breathing. We make it hard believing all this foreign nonsense that we can't explain. We just believe. And when you believe, you be alive. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.